Hi besties and welcome back to my trash channel. This is a series I'm gonna be working on. There's nothing else really to say, so enjoy the video. Distraught face. Upward turned hand gesturing with fingers pinched together. In 𝐏𝐚𝐤 and 𝐒𝐚𝐤𝐭's private messages. 𝐏𝐚𝐤 is online. Oh dickhead. I've been knocking on the door for the past 5 minutes. Why aren't you answering? 𝐒𝐚𝐤 is online. The fuck do you want? Can you not read or something? Open the goddamn door. Dickhead. Did you just call me dickhead? Clearly. Now open the fucking door. Why? Why do you even have it locked anyways? Why? Because dinner. It's ready. You need to come down and eat. Oh. Yeah. Now open the door. No. I'll be down in a moment. I don't believe you. Just open the door. No. Believe me. You can take all my cleaning supplies if I don't come. How much did you even bring with you? More than enough, and I'm not willing to sacrifice them, so I'll be down soon. Just give me a moment. Bitch. 𝐒𝐚𝐤 is offline. Wow. And I came here to tell you that food is ready. And this is how I am treated. You're so mean to me, 𝐒𝐚𝐤. Anyways, I'm hungry as fuck, so I'll see you in a minute or two. Hopefully. 𝐏𝐚𝐤 is offline. Sakuatsu sighed and placed the phone he held in his hand on the bed next to him. He just wanted to relax. But no, everyone in the world wanted to ruin that for him. It had been loud over the past few days and Sakuatsu could barely take it anymore. But it was partially his fault, so he couldn't really complain. He and Komori had been invited to the All Japan's training camp, and he knew this was an amazing opportunity, so he decided to go. They only sought out to find the best of the best volleyball players in high schoolers, and even if there was an option to not go, there wasn't really, even for someone like him. He knew this could take him places. He was more inclined to go. Hearing that his cousin, Komori, was also invited, if he wasn't, he'd imagine his anxiety would be 10 times worse, and getting used to the unfamiliar environment would have been much harder. As much as he complains about his cousin, he is thankful for him and all the help he gives him, and he of course loves him, even if he doesn't show it or say it, ever. He's said it before, only once, and he remembered it very vividly. Komori had cried hearing it, glad that his cousin was now starting to express how he feels. Also because Sakuatsu wasn't the best at expressing how he felt, and so Komori was happy to be assured that Sakuatsu did in fact love him. Sakuatsu groaned as he stood up, stretching the cramps that had been formed from sitting in the same position for too long. He reluctantly started to waddle to the door despite wishing to stay in his room. He was never a people person and had no interest in making friends. He believed he had all the people he needed, which was just Komori, and didn't think he needed anyone else. Why would he need anyone more? Friends were just an inconvenience. Someone to cause more problems for you. Someone who gives you more things to deal with than you had to. What was the appeal in that? He has his own problems of his own. He doesn't need other people's on top of that. He sighed as he opened his dorm door and closed it behind himself. Walking down the stairs slower than his usual walking pace, trying to postpone going to the cafeteria as much as he could, but he'd have to get there eventually either way. And it didn't take him long to get there, despite the minor change in his pace. He was greeted by a room full of people all sat down at different tables, chatting and eating, but he soon noticed his cousin waving at him from a table near the back of the room. He nodded to himself and made his way over there. He felt his body tense up slightly, trying to shake the unruly feeling that everyone was looking at him. Another reason he didn't like people, their eyes. Despite his irrational brain depicting to him that everyone was looking at him, Sakuatsu was very good at reading body language and figured out you can tell a lot of what someone's feeling just by their eyes. Embarrassment, happiness, sadness, nervousness, anger, confidence, envy, hope, and of course disappointment. He could see it all. He let out an exhale and pulled a chair out from under the table. You sure took your time. What took you so long? Sorry. I just didn't wanna see your face. Komori scoffed and kicked Sakuatsu under the table. The spiker let out a quiet groan as he tucked his chair in further under the table, giving Komori a glare. You're the one being rude to me for no reason. Don't look at me like that. Look at you like what? I haven't done anything. You know how. Now go get some food. You took a long time, so there's no queue anymore. I guess that's one positive. Being late isn't always bad. And being late isn't always good either. Now go get some food. No Q means that everyone has already gotten their food, which also means that all the good food might be taken already. There's your negative. Food is just a fuel. I don't care what it is, and I'm sure that isn't the only negative. But anyways, I'll go get my food now. He pushed the chair back as he stood up and then pushed it back under the table, walking over the counter that Komori had directed him to and to where a caterer was stood with a smile on her face. Oh hi. Komori said as he slammed Sakusa's door wide open, effectively making the spiker almost jump out of his skin. He turned around from his position on his bed with an unamused expression plastered on his face, followed by a death glare. The fuck do you want? How long do you expect to stay in your room for? Until tomorrow? Duh. We don't even have to practice right now. You could come be social, you know. Sakusa scoffed and Komori closed the door behind himself, slowly walking to Sakusa's bed and sitting down next to the boy. What? Come on. Some people are practicing right now. Let's go join them. You can join them if you want. I'm staying here though. Please. I'll lock my door next time. No means no. I don't want to practice with them. Komori sighed. He knew full well even before he entered the room that the answer would be no, though he still had a little bit of hope that he would join them. Alright. I won't bother you again. Thank you. Today. Sakusa groaned and laid back on his bed, resting his hands on his face and whining into them. The libero just laughed and rubbed the back of his head. You're not getting off that easily. But anyways, if you don't mind me. Komori said as he stood up and walked towards the door. Sakusa looked at him through a crack in his fingers and watched as he opened the door. I'm gonna go practice now. Bye. Make sure not to stay up too late or you'll be tired in the morning. Komori smiled and closed the door as he walked out. Sakusa sighed. He did have a dying urge to practice but didn't want to spend a single second more than he had to with the other people. He just decided he'd wait until later, and practice then, even though Komori told him not to stay up too late. He'd rather focus on his own skills anyways, and these people weren't even a part of his own team. Why would he want to play with them? He was a good player as he was. 10:57 p.m. Sakusa hummed to himself and finished off tying his shoelaces, grabbing his phone and headphones from his bed and placing the headphones on his head. Just under 30 minutes ago he had heard the group of players come back to the dormitory. They were really loud so it wouldn't take a genius to realize they were back. He assumed by this time they had all managed to get a shower, hopefully, and gone back to their dorms to get ready for bed. He didn't want to have an awkward interaction with someone and have to explain where he was going and why he didn't join in with practicing earlier, so he decided to wait a couple more minutes for any slow ones. They'd all probably be going to sleep soon. They were due to wake up at 6:30 a.m. the next morning, so it would make sense. But Sakusa just wanted to practice. He knew he'd be tired in the morning regardless of the time he went to sleep, so what would 1 or 2 less hours of sleep do to him? He waited for a little longer, the time eventually getting to 11:14 before low voices could no longer be heard. Sakusa just made the assumption that they had finally gone to bed. Sakusa felt his phone buzz in his pocket, so he reached for it quickly, reading the notification on the lock screen. New message from 𝐏𝐚𝐤𝐮 Lantern. Good night, cuz. Make sure not to stay up too late. I'm going to bed. Make sure you do soon or you'll be tired in the morning. He smiled to himself and unlocked his phone, going into his and the libero's messages and typing his reply. Thanks. I won't stay up too late. Good night. He blatantly lied to him and he knew Komori knew he was lying too. They just knew each other too well for their own good sometimes. He quickly locked his phone and placed it back into his pocket as he walked out of his dorm and into the hallway, making sure to check for anyone who by chance might have been stood there, but he assumed right. They were all already in their rooms. He then trotted down the hallway and down the stairs, trying to make his feet as light as possible. The gym was slightly further away from the dorms than the cafeteria, so it took a little longer to get there. He was glad of this. It meant that no one would be able to hear him when he was practicing and come to see what all the noise was about. He eventually got there and was surprised to see that the nets and balls were still out. He didn't know if the nets were meant to be there permanently or if the boys were just too lazy to put them away, but it didn't matter because it meant that he didn't have to get his own net out and or put it away after he was done using it. He didn't waste any time and got straight into practicing, taking a ball from the bag and turning up his music as he began to practice his spikes against the wall. 12:21 a.m. Sakuatsu snapped his head quickly to the doorway of the gym that led to outside as he heard the door open, the ball that he had just threw in the air moments ago dropping to the floor as a certain just as startled blonde walked in. Atsumu. The setter raised an eyebrow as he saw Sakuatsu all alone in the gym and he closed the door behind himself, saying a quick bye Samu into his phone and letting it fall from his ear. Hello? Hey. The blonde walked further into the gym, looking around the place to see if anyone else was there only to find out that Sakuatsu was indeed practicing alone. What are you doing? Practicing. Why? Alone. Yay. Atsumu continued to walk until he was stood relatively close to the spiker. Sakuatsu of course knew who he was. Anyone who followed volleyball would. The Mia twins. He and his twin brother Osamu. When Sakuatsu first arrived at the training camp he was surprised to see that it was only Atsumu who was there since they were a duo, but he guessed that they just judged it by individual skills and Atsumu was an amazing setter. What are you doing that for? I don't know if you noticed but it's pretty late. Everyone's asleep. So I'm here. Alone. Late. His face displayed visible confusion as he picked up his phone that he had just placed in his pocket and read the time on his lock screen. Sakuatsu watched as his eyes widened. 12:23. How did it get so late? I don't know. Holy shit, time flies. I'm not even tired. Goddamn, Samu should have told me the time. Sakuatsu watched as the blonde continued to whine to himself and he recognized that he had already zoned him out by now. He was a little taken back by how childish he seemed. Out of the few people he had been forced to pair up with, most of them were serious. Too serious. Though it wasn't all a surprise, he had watched a couple of Inarizuki's matches before and seen how he and his twin would fight between each scored point, even if they just scored the point. Ugh. Whatever. I don't know how I'm gonna sleep. Atsumu eventually stopped whining and smirked as he looked down at the ball Sakuatsu had just dropped on the floor. He walked over to it, taking note of how the spiker took a subconscious step back as he got closer to him and picked up the ball. Germophobia. You have it right. I mean, yes. I'm so smart. Sakuatsu rolled his eyes and sighed as he walked to the basket to pick up another volleyball. He hit it on the floor a few times, a habit he had. Wait, Sakuatsu. Sakuatsu turned around and walked back, despite the last thing he wanted being to have to entertain the setter. You know you should ask my name before using it. It makes you sound like a creep if you don't. Creep? I'm no creep. You know my name. I don't recall telling you. Oh come on. Anyone who follows volleyball knows who you are. You still sound like a creep. Atsumu groaned and puffed his cheeks out, also letting out a reluctant sigh. Fine. What's your name? Thank you. Sakuatsu. Sakuatsu Kayumi. Atsumu smiled and rubbed the back of his neck with one hand, holding the volleyball in his other. Nice to meet ya. Yay. It is nice to meet me. Atsumu scoffed and dropped the ball he was holding on the floor, placing his foot on top of it. Cocky bastard. This is the part where you ask for my name. Atsumu Mia. So yeah, the creep now. It only takes like one Google search to find your name. Yeah, being hypocritical. Maybe. I don't care. Anyways, you should go to sleep. You'll be tired in the morning. And you won't. Sakuatsu turned to look Atsumu dead in the eye, holding his arm, holding the ball out straight in front of him. Go away. Practicing on your own must be so lonely. Let me set for you. Atsumu smirked and reached out to grab the ball in Sakuatsu's hands. The spiker quickly pulled his hands away as soon as the blonde made contact with the ball, not wanting him to touch him. I'm good, thanks. I'm practicing at this time for a reason. Which is to avoid having to see people like you. But I guess luck isn't on my side today. Oh well. Atsumu hummed. Get used to it. I'm gonna be practicing with you from now on. What? You heard me. Let me set for you. No. Leave me alone. Oh come on. It's better to practice with a setter than against the wall. I'm sure you know that. But you're also an annoying pest, and I'd rather be left alone. You don't even know me. Please. Leave. So do you prefer high, low or medium sets? Sakuatsu groaned, making Atsumu smirk as he ignored Sakuatsu's attempts to make him leave. From the gameplay I watched for ya, yeah setter seem to send all types but I'm not sure what's your favorite. I guess you'll never know. I'll figure it out. Atsumu jogged over to the court with a smile on his face as he looked directly at the spiker's eyes. Sakusa was slightly taken back as the setter's confidence. He didn't try to avoid eye contact whatsoever, keeping a steady gaze, and Sakusa could tell it was full of confidence. Now Omi, let me set for ya. Omi who? Atsumu threw the ball that was in his hands into Sakusa's face. He groaned as it hit his face and felt his eyebrows arch. Simon, let me set for ya. What type of set was that? Omi, I don't know if you realized, but there's a full basket of volleyballs right next to me. And if you don't get your ass onto this court right now, expect many more sets like you just experienced. Bastard. Sakusa almost felt complied to say yes sir, but just sighed, shook his head and threw the ball back into Atsumu's face instead. Whatever. The sets better be amazing. Of course Omi. The fuck is an Omi? 2:43 a.m. The pair pressed their hands to their knees, trying to catch their breath. They had been practicing non-stop for God knows how long, and the fatigue was just starting to settle in. Pass me my water bottle please Omi. Get it yourself. Atsumu whined but did as he said, watching Sakusa take a large gulp out of his water bottle, which he was soon to copy in doing so. Rude. After all the sets I just gave ya. My fingers hurt Omi. Save your breath. My ears hurt. Atsumu scoffed but threw his head back, taking a long and over-exaggerated gulp from it. He then walked over to the benches beside the court and picked his and Sakusa's jackets up from it. Sakusa's face quickly displayed disgust since Atsumu had just touched his jacket with his disgusting sweaty hands, and Atsumu chuckled seeing his facial expression change. You have been sweating too, you know. You're more disgusting than me. I don't know where you've been. Atsumu simply rolled his eyes and walked towards where Sakusa was standing, taking another over-exaggerated sip from his bottle and holding his arm out in front of him, offering Sakusa the jacket he had just picked up. Before Sakusa took the jacket, he rooted around in the pocket of it, pulling out his disinfectant spray. He then took the jacket out of the setter's hand and sprayed where he had just been holding it. Wow. I'm not that disgusting. You're filthy. I'm not at all. You're just in denial. Or maybe you're just over-exaggerating. I know I am, but I can't help it. At least I'll admit it. Atsumu looked slightly confused for a second but soon shrugged it off, turning his gaze towards the exit of the gym. He smiled to himself and put his jacket over his shoulders, moving his body around, and began to walk backwards towards it. Say, do you wanna go for a walk? Sakusa raised an eyebrow but felt complied to walk with him as the setter moved further and further away. It's like. Sakusa looked down at the jacket still in his hands and quickly put it over and around his shoulders, pulling his phone from the pocket of it and checking the time. His eyes went wide as Atsumu stood by the door. 2:45. How did it get so late? Hey. I dunno. Whatever. You should sleep. I'm not even tired. Might as well stay up all night. No. Sleep. By now Sakusa was also stood by the door next to Atsumu. They were both wide awake, and probably because of the adrenaline still coursing through their bodies. Why do you keep saying you? If I'm sleeping then so are you. I'm not tired. What makes you think I am? I don't know. Most sporty people have a normal sleep schedule. Atsumu smiled and rubbed the back of his head. I guess we're in the same boat then Omi. We both have a shit sleep schedule. Another thing we have in common. Another thing? Apart from that I don't see any similarities between us. Shush. You'll see em soon. Okay. But anyways, do you think going for a walk is a good idea? We should probably shower. I feel disgusting. Sakusa's face suddenly displayed more disgust as he reminded himself of his and Atsumu's sweaty state. Atsumu just simply chuckled and grabbed the handle to the exit of the door. He then walked out, holding it open, expectantly waiting for Sakusa to walk out, which he did with minor contemplating and a sigh. We can shower afterwards. See Omi. The night is young. Sakusa rolled his eyes and walked completely outside. Atsumu then let the door shut, smiling as he looked up to the street lamps that light up the night sky. His smile brightened as he looked up into the moon and the shimmering stars. Sakusa almost found himself smiling as well. He too liked the night. One more thing they had in common. I wouldn't say the night is young. It's close to 3 am. And it's summer. The sun rises early, you know. Oh shush. And move your ass. I didn't come here to talk by the doorway. He turned his head to Sakuatsu to flash a quick smile before speed walking through the car park and onto the streets. Sakuatsu had to jog to catch up. The hell? Why are you so eager? I wish I could tell you honestly. I just like the night. Walking faster isn't going to make it stay longer. Let me enjoy myself. Atsumu hummed as he continued to look at the sky, a smile sticking to his face like glue. Sakuatsu looked at him, slightly confused, but soon found his mouth trying to form a smile. It was like it was contagious. He quickly rooted through his pockets and took his mask from it, quickly pulling the strings over his ears. It was kind of funny. Sakuatsu wasn't good at getting to know people, or making friends, but he already felt like he made a friend out of Atsumu. He wasn't sure if it was the fact that he was basically forced to get to know him or if it was that he talked a lot or maybe that Atsumu overshared some things, but he felt like he knew him. What were you doing before you joined me in the gym anyways? You were outside. Looked like you were on the phone. Oh. You remember? Yay. I do. Some people don't have pea brains. Unlike some people. Ugh. Shush. I was just on the phone to Samu. Sakuatsu hummed to himself and placed his numbing hands into his pockets to heat them up. He had always gotten cold easily and today was no exception. Why? Atsumu laughed. Nosy are we? No. It was nothing interesting or serious. We were just talking. It's weird him not being there. We're twins, you know. He's been there all my life and this is like one of the only times we've been separated. I guess he missed me. But then again, if I wasn't there with someone, who wouldn't miss me? Atsumu playfully winked and Sakuatsu rolled his eyes, now rubbing his fingers to the palms of his hands to cause friction. Someone who hasn't met you. Whatever. I miss him too. Saying how much you fight. I'm surprised you miss each other. HAA. How do you know we fight? Sakuatsu cleared his throat. 1. You seem like that type of person. 2. I've seen some of your matches before. You fight between every point. So much for a stalker, Omi. It's not stalking. I'm just seeking out my competition. Oh yay. I forgot we were on different teams for a second. Oh god, being on the same team as you would be hell. I sure didn't. What? I'm not that bad. Plus I'm a good player. You're annoying. By the second week I'd be trying to kill you. Atsumu laughed, his fingers now starting to get cold as he slid them into his pockets. For a summer night it sure was cold. Hey, what can I say? At least it's not the first week. Sakuatsu scoffed and rolled his eyes. An idiot. A complete idiot. A complete annoying idiot. They continued to walk like that, making light conversation, mesmerized by the gorgeous sky. They didn't know what time it was or what time they got back since they lost track of time, but they enjoyed every moment of it. Omi. Atsumu half whispered as he lightly knocked on Sakuatsu's door. After receiving no reply he raised his tone a little and banged a little louder, still conscious of the fact that it was late, or what could be considered early at this point. Omi. He heard a faint voice from the other side of the door and smiled as he heard the sound of what he assumed was Sakuatsu unlocking his door. It was soon to open, revealing Sakuatsu with half-wet hair, a hoodie and a pair of shorts on with a damp towel wrapped around his neck. What do you want? Go back to your own room. No. I'm bored. Can we watch Netflix together? Watch it by yourself. No. You have nothing to do anyways. Now let me in. No. Yes. No. Yes. No. Please. No. Do it or I'll make a lot of noise and wake everyone up. Ha. Yeah. Now let me in. Sakuatsu groaned and opened his door wider, stepping back from it slightly to let the now beaming Atsumu inside. The last thing he wanted was for this idiot to cause a racket so early in the day. He'd get Sakuatsu and himself in trouble. Atsumu looked around the place. It was bare but that was to be expected. The doors were pretty bland looking. He hummed to himself before deciding to sit down on the bed like he owned the place. Sakuatsu then shut the door, pulling a frown down onto his face as he looked at the blonde. The setter just smiled innocently in reply. You do realize we just met today. You can't just be walking into my doormat. He patted down his pockets only to realize his phone wasn't in it. He then looked over to his bed. Right beside Atsumu was his phone that he had been playing with just before Atsumu came into the room. He walked over to his bed and picked up his phone, sitting down in its place and checking the time. Atsumu looked over his shoulder to see the time too. It read 4:20. Is this a joke? Go back to your dorm. No way. I wanted to watch Netflix. Meow, it's late as fuck. So? Are you planning on sleeping or something? No. The answer was no. He'd probably end up being even more tired if he did. Even though that logic doesn't really make sense. He'd probably just sleep early the next night to catch up on the sleep he lost. No. Then you have nothing better to do. Come on. We could get ready for practice. It starts in like 3 hours. Who needs 3 hours to get ready? Plus you have already showed. You can't get away from Miyomi. Please go bother someone else. Atsumu groaned and let his body lay back, resting his arms behind his head and looking up at the ceiling. Believe it or not, I know absolutely no one here. What? Well, other than you, I guess now. Sakusa hummed. Atsumu seemed very social, so he assumed he'd know almost everyone invited by now. I thought you'd know at least a few people here. Well, I don't. Guess that's another thing we have in common. Not really. I'm here with my cousin, Komori. Komori? He's your cousin? Yay. I just thought you were teammates. You look nothing alike. Sakusa scoffed. Yay. We get that a lot. You mean you actually talk to people? Damn. Sakusa rolled his eyes and shook his head. He wanted to poke his fingers so far into his eyes so that he'd never be able to see again. No. They talk to me. So you ignore them. Pretty much. I don't like talking much. Atsumu sat up questioningly, looking at Sakusa with a raised eyebrow. What? I mean, you give off those vibes, but you have been talking to me for the past few hours and you're not exactly bad at it. Sakusa's eyes widened. He was right. He'd been talking with him for a while and not once did he feel socially awkward and want to run away because of it. Well, other than when the setter first entered the gym when he was practicing. Does that mean I'm special? What, you seem to hate talking to everyone. Does that mean I'm special? I'm sorry to break it to you, but I wouldn't say I enjoy talking to you all that much. But you don't hate it, right? Does that mean I'm special? Of course not. Yes. The answer was yes. He just didn't know quite yet. Dash. Hi besties. I hope you enjoyed the video. While reading this, I low-key felt like it seemed like my first series, but it wasn't meant to loudly crying face. But still, I hope you enjoyed. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video. Bye besties.